Okay, just further to what we were talking about before, the paper's Malcolm Turnbull has tweeted that Sam Maiden called him yesterday and asked what he would say to Shadow Cabinet, and he said he would not discuss it. But she did not put to him the story that she'd written, that he was going to raise the issue in Shadow Cabinet. But I think your point, Dennis, still holds that it'll be raised in the party room, if not Shadow Cabinet. Yep. Phil, just on what we heard then from Bob Carr on Julian Assange, I think he was saying that if he is extradited to Sweden, at that point Australia would make it clear to the United States that they don't support extradition.
Or at any other point if they lodged an application to extradite him. It was interesting, I thought he said that if they'd wanted to, they would have done it by now, and it'd be easier to get him from the UK than it would from Sweden. So it's sort of...
But they may still be working on it. They may not have the case ready to run. The extradition could come further down the track. Look, he even said that there is a possibility the Justice Department is working on it.
Yeah, well, there always is. I mean, the US Justice Department is a pretty big beast. But they've had 2 years to put together a case. And I think there is a lot of logic in the assertion that it could be more difficult to extradite someone from Sweden than from Britain. The Swedish legal system is more difficult to deal with than the British legal system. And people I've spoken to back up what Bob Carr said, that in terms of extradition, they would get a better hearing in Britain. So I think there is something to that. But it's obvious from what Bob Carr said this morning that he's already made the point to the Americans that Julian Assange is an Australian, we've got an interest in this guy, and if you're going to do anything, talk to us because we have a firm view, and it's pretty obvious he's put that view to them.
But whatever happens with the United States, this matter in Sweden has to be resolved. Julian Assange is a complete narcissist. He's now welched on all the people who put up bail for him by absconding on bail. He was only in night detention. He wasn't in home detention, but he's now done that. Now, these matters go back 1.5 years. They relate to an allegation of sexual assault. The Swedish police want to talk to him. He won't go there. These matters have to be resolved. Whatever happens out of the United States, and possibly nothing will happen out of the United States, there is this matter there. And as Dennis was saying and the Minister was saying, if the Americans want to get him, it's probably easier to get him out of Britain than it is out of Sweden. So there's no reason why he shouldn't go back to Sweden and talk to the police.
It is a difficult one for the left to argue in some cases, because ordinarily if women have an allegation against someone, their argument would be go and face it,
of
go
course,
and face your accuser.
This is massive hypocrisy. These were not only women in Sweden, they were left-wing women from a left-wing group, and we're now supposed to believe that this is some kind of CIA conspiracy. The CIA is not that good. I mean, it can't control these matters, and these issues should have been resolved. But because Assange is a complete narcissist, and he treated the women the way he treats everyone else, I assume, he's made a lot of enemies along the way, and even Jemima Khan's now getting upset. Perhaps he wants a £20,000 back.
Is it a tough issue for the government? Where are the politics on this?
I don't think there's majority support or sympathy or concern for Assange. I think there's certainly he's got a very strong following, but I don't think it's a majority. And you'll find that as a journalist, I wrote a story about him a couple of weeks ago, and you get it from all over the world, not just within Australia. He has a big following out there, but I just find him a little bit naive that you can do what he did, and I'm not condemning what he did or otherwise, but then not expect really powerful people to be upset about it. And you know, there are consequences with actions, and whether they're justified or not. And I find the whole thing a little bit naive that people, you know, are shocked and horrified that, you know, there may be someone after him.
There are some understandable wry smiles in some coalition ranks, because they remember the way that they copped grief over David Hicks being held at Guantanamo Bay, and the Labor Party generally added to that grief. So they think, you know, sort of the Gillard government is getting a bit of medicine that they copped. The big difference now is that the opposition is going to do nothing to support Julian Assange. They're not interested in giving him any favours whatsoever.
And, yeah, there has to be some consistency too about how you deal with these consular matters, because sometimes we go all out. When that 14-year-old boy was on drug charges in Bali,
Prime Minister rang him.
The Prime Minister got involved. Kevin Rudd said we've got to get the little fella out of there. That's a top priority at the time. And Chappelle Corby, you know, it's hard to be consistent.
Well, it is hard to be consistent, and what I'm concerned about very much is Australian citizens who have been convicted and have been held in China. We don't hear much about that in the media.
Yeah.
But there's just huge double standards on Assange. I mean, as to David Hicks, I mean, he could have done a plea bargain. His lawyers advised him not to do it. Hicks could have been out about 2 years earlier than he was out, but he wanted to make a stance. Then finally he did do a kind of bargain. And John Howard worked very hard to get Hicks out. In the end it happened. It may have been too late, but I don't have any great time for Hicks. I mean, you know, if you want to run with the Taliban, someone's going to come against you.